Welcome and welcome back everybody, Tabletop Toki here, and in today's video I'll be going through my board game plays from April 2024. This was a little bit of a slow month for me. I only had 54 plays of 47 different games, but I did get to try a couple new ones. A lot of the plays were concentrated in the middle of the month because I hosted kind of like a little mini convention at my place that I do twice a year. And we had multiple tables set up, lots of different people coming and going, great food, and a lot of opportunities for people to bring and share some of their favorite games. So let's just jump right into it. One of the new games that I played is Odin. This is a new game from Helvetique. It is not unlike Scout or Smoke and Mirrors, where you are playing cards trying to one-up your opponents. This one feels a little bit off in terms of scoring and your ability to kind of manipulate what's going on. There are some choices in terms of playing cards of the same number or of the same color, but ultimately I do feel after a couple plays that it really comes down to whatever you start off with in your hands. Whether you get really lucky or not so lucky, it can really kind of throw the game. So I'm definitely gonna have to try to play this one a little bit more before I make some final judgments on it. I also got to play Resar Con twice, hey! And Couture, I think I talked about this in the stream last month from last month's plays, but you're dividing up your hand of different agents and sending them out to different cities to procure different fashions. And it really holds up so far, so I'm excited to play it more. We have more plays of Rafter 5, Targi, It's a Wonderful World, some really great ones. I also got to try the magnificent expansion, Snow, which I had not previously gotten to play, so I sat down one day and had a nice big solo day of it. Unfortunately, I did not meet the goal of meeting, I think it's 210 points. I was just shy at like 178, but it was a really cool experience, and I'm looking forward to getting to play it with up to 5 players with the expansion as well. Monstrosity is just a fantastic game. I haven't talked about it in a while, but you have people that are acting as sketch artists trying to draw whatever the witness saw for the monster, which is like the culprit in the scenario. It's just kind of chaos, real time, going back and forth, describing the monster, everybody drawing, asking questions, and then you have a voting phase. This is definitely one of my favorite party games. Even if you're not great at drawing, that kind of almost adds to the appeal because then you get some really interesting images out of it. Another game that I played for the first time this month was the Slay the Spire the board game. I do not play a lot of video games anymore. However, I have a disgusting amount of hours logged in this game. So when they announced a board game, I was very skeptical. Basically, it's a roguelike deck builder where you're going through the dungeon, fighting progressively harder enemies and bosses, upgrading your cards, culling your deck, gaining new cards in order to have like the best combinations possible, along with like relics and potions, which are ongoing in one-time use. Thinking about taking all of that math and all of that streamlinedness from the video game and then putting it into a board game, I wasn't sure how well that would work. But the one thing that this game does really well is it pares down the math. It makes it a lot less fiddly than I thought it would be. And it gives you the ability to play it cooperatively, which is really cool. So you can target monsters in your row or your teammates' rows and kind of mitigate things that way. Whereas the video game is just a solo experience. So this was a really fun one to get to try. Also got to play a lot of other party games like Bonanza, Just One. Robo Trick is a really cool trick-taking game where you play it at exactly 3 players because the 4th player slot is taken up by an AI robot. And there are different cards for each game or each hand that you can use with rules on how they will play accordingly. It feels like a solo game that you can play with other people, but competitively because of that anticipation of knowing and trying to manipulate what the opponent will do on their turn. So I really liked this. I haven't really seen a game that integrates that in a multiplayer game where it feels really interesting and you can feel really clever. I did not do well, but I did have a lot of fun and I appreciate the genius of the design. I also had a first play of Shake That City. So I haven't played Tiny Towns, but from my understanding, it seems very similar. You have some cubes that represent buildings, and you're going to select them and place them into your own personal grid in order to build a city. Different buildings will have different scorings based on the rows and columns and adjacency and things like that. So it was a pretty interesting little puzzle to put together. I am curious though about the replayability, if there are different types of buildings, different modes, or if you could potentially change the scoring for some of the buildings buildings to give more variety from play to play, but overall it was a really fun experience to get to try this one out. And moving right along, some other favorites like Parade, Boomerang, Durian, Village Green, The Boldest Ito, you know we had to play Ito. I also got to try Make the Difference from Oink Games. This is a drawing game where you're going to push your luck and try to add as big of lines as you can without other opponents being able to pick them out in the time given. So you have your picture, you modify it, you compare it to the original, and then players have to try to find all the differences as quickly as possible. It's a very unique game. Again, with this one, I'm not entirely sure about the replayability, but I do have to say that I really loved it. I am biased because all of the pictures were bunny based. So keep that in mind, but I think this is a cool one. If you at least get to try it, I would say definitely go for it. Flash 10 is another game that I got to try. Somebody actually brought this and taught it to the mini-con. This is a speed game. It kind of reminded me of Dutch Blitz if you've ever played that, but essentially you have a line of cards and you're trying to get them from lowest to highest. You're going to be pulling cards from the center, overlapping them one at a time, trying to make sure that all the cards are in ascending order, but you can use flashes to kind of break up your line, but they will count towards negative points. This one was really interesting. It was super quick, and I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out for a copy because I love speed games. As you can see, pretty quick month here, not anything too crazy, but overall had some classics, had a couple new games in there, so no complaints from me. If you're interested in trying out any of these games, be sure to check out our sponsor, Noble Night, link down in the description. And I want to say a huge thank you to our members. It's officially been 1 month since memberships were started on the channel. If you haven't already, feel free to consider signing up. That's about all the time we have for today. Thanks so much as always for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.